Before the gods of Olympus ruled the world, before Zeus seized control, before Artemis darted through the woods, and before Poseidon shook the land, the Titans reigned. The Titans had immense power and varying dispositions. They were the second generation of deities after the Primordials, and their influence on the world was enormous. In all, there were 12 Titans. Some are more well known than others, like Cronus and Rhea. But who were the others, and what influence did they have on the future of Greek mythology? First of all, let's take a step back to the primordial deities to find the parents of the Titans. Gaia was one of the original 4 primordials that sprang into being at the beginning of everything. She created 3 children, Aurea, Pontus, and Uranos. She then had children with both Pontus and Uranos. For this video, we're just going to focus on the children she had with Uranos. 3 sets of them. But if you want to learn about the other primordial gods and the offspring they had, I have a video on that up there in the card and down in the description. And it's worth pointing out at this stage that all the lineages and relationships talked about here are from Hesiod's Theogony. This is widely regarded as the most authoritative source, but there are many others with conflicting details. If we went into all of them, this video would last for hours and hours, so we'll stick with the mainstream view of things. One set of Gaia and Uranos' children were the 3 Cyclops, one-eyed giants. Then there were the Hecatonchires, which were giants with 100 arms and 50 heads. There were 3 of them too. Uranus wasn't keen on any of these 6, which led to all sorts of trouble down the line. The other set of children were the Titans, 12 in all, 6 male and 6 female. With a few notable exceptions, almost all of the gods and divine heroes from Greek myths can trace their ancestry back to one of these Titans, and quite often more than one. That's because there was a lot of coupling between the Titans. Yes, they were siblings, but this is mythology, and at that point in the history of the gods, there weren't really that many individuals around. So 4 of the men and 4 of the women Titans married and had children. The other 2 men and 2 women had other relationships with nieces and cousins and other slightly more extended family. So let's take a look at each of the Titans, beginning with the married couple of Oceanus and Tethys. Oceanus was the oldest Titan. They called him the Great River who encircled the world, and early on he was thought of as the god of the sea and most likely the representation of the Mediterranean. But Poseidon became more popular and overshadowed Oceanus, who became more related to the Atlantic Ocean and perhaps the Black Sea, further and more mysterious bodies of water. He was often depicted as having a bull's head, or at least bull horns. He held a snake in his left hand and a fish in his right. He had the body of a fish from the waist down, a really powerful merman. He married his sister Tethys. She's usually shown as having wings sprouting from her forehead, holding an oar with a ketos somewhere nearby. A ketos is a large sea creature, in this case with the head of a dragon and the body of a snake. Tethys didn't have much of a role in mythology, except for being the ancestor of some notable figures. Actually, that's the case for quite a lot of the Titans. They're important ancestors, but rarely feature in the stories. Oceanus and Tethys had 2 sets of children, and there were loads of them. We're talking thousands, beyond counting. The first set were the Potami, river gods. Most are uninteresting, just being connected to various rivers in the Mediterranean world, but a few stand out. Nile is quite a big one, and Achelous is the largest river in Greece. And Scamander, who fought with the Trojans against the Greeks, and was so angry when Achilles polluted his waters with dead Trojans, he flooded his banks, nearly drowning Achilles. The second set of offspring are called the Oceanids, and include Metis and Eurynome, who were 2 of Zeus's many wives. Eurynome was the mother of the Graces, while Metis was the mother of Athena. Another famous name is Styx. She's the goddess of the river you cross to get to the underworld. And then there's Calypso, an Oceanid famous for her role in the Odyssey where she detains Odysseus for 7 years. There are quite a few conflicting sources on Calypso's parentage, however, so don't be surprised if you see it reported differently elsewhere. Moving on, we get to the oldest of the female titans, Thea, and her husband Hyperion. Thea had the epithet of wide shining and is associated with vision, gold, silver, and gems. Hyperion is associated with the sun, and his name means something like he who walks up high. Hyperion and Thea had 3 children together, Helios, Selene, and Eos. Helios is famous for being the sun god, the father of Circe and the grandfather of Medea, 2 very famous and important women. You'll recognise them and Helios if you've read Madeline Miller's book Circe, which I highly recommend. Selene is the moon goddess. Interestingly, Thea is the name given to a hypothesized planet that collided with the Earth and became the moon, so it kind of makes sense that Selene is Thea's daughter. Eos is the goddess of the dawn. She married one of the sons of another titan, Creus, who, to be honest, is probably the least interesting of the lot. He has very little role in any myths other than just being an ancestor. Creus married Eurybia, who was one of Gaia's children with Pontus, so like his half-sister/cousin. They had 3 kids. The first was Astraeus, who's the one who married Eos, the dawn goddess, and their children were the winds and the stars. The other 2 offspring of Creus and Eurybia were Pallas and Perses. Pallas married Styx, who we saw earlier, and their children were Nike, Zelus, Cratus, and Baia. Perses married the daughter of Ceus and Phoebe, who are 2 of the other titans, so let's shift over to them. Ceus is quite obscure. His name relates to queries, questions, and intelligence. He married Phoebe, who is all about purity, clarity, brightness, and moonlight. She was once the owner of the Oracle of Delphi. Ceus and Phoebe had 2 daughters. Asteria married Perses, and their daughter was Hecate, goddess of witches and magic and a favourite of Zeus. Their other daughter, Leto, had something to do with Zeus as well, being the 6th wife to bear his children. She's the mother of twins who you may have heard of, Apollo and Artemis. Talking of famous children, let's move on to our next titan, Iapetus. Not particularly famous himself, he married Clymene, who was one of the Oceanid children of Oceanus and Tethys. They had 4 sons together, Atlas, Menetius, Epimetheus, and Prometheus. I reckon you've heard of at least 2 of them, and they all have quite a big part to play in the Titanomachy when Zeus goes to war with the Titans. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, that's a story for a future video. We've been through 8 of the Titans now, and to be honest, apart from their famous descendants, none of them did that much beyond fighting in the Titanomachy. None of them are especially memorable. Probably because they weren't Mnemosyne, the Titaness of memory itself. She presides over people's memories and was called upon by poets and bards at the start of their performances to help remember their lines. She also controlled a pool in Hades where dead souls drank to forget their past life before being reincarnated. For 9 consecutive nights, she lay with Zeus, each night bringing a daughter into the world. They were the Muses, the overseers of arts and performances. Even today, performers and creators call upon the Muses for inspiration. And where do you think we got the word music from? Another titan whose legacy survives in modern times is Themis. She was the personification of justice, law, and divine order, often depicted as a serious woman holding scales. Many courthouses today have a statue of her outside, or her Roman goddess equivalent Justitia, still invoking the principles she held, and she's often referred to as Lady Justice. And like many others, she had children with Zeus. Those kids were 2 sets of 3 daughters, the Seasons and the Fates. So did Zeus sleep with everyone? It certainly seems like it, but Zeus wasn't one of the Titans. He was actually the son of our final 2 Titans, Cronus and Rhea. These are arguably the most famous 2, and for good reason. Rhea is known as the mother of gods, while Cronus is the father of gods. He's also the god of time, usually carrying around a sickle. Their children were 6 in number. Hestia, Demeter, and Hera were their daughters, and their sons were Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. That's quite a collection. For a long time, Cronus was the ruler of the Titans and pretty much everything else. But that wasn't always the case. He had to overthrow his father Uranus, and he was later overthrown by Zeus. The stories of these monumental successional conflicts are the focus of my next video. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss that, and when it's made, I'll put it right here on the screen so you can watch it straight away. See you next time.